Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to the BlackUSA.News morning show. My name is Donnie Glover, publisher of BlackUSA.News. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. We have a special guest. Looking forward to speaking with him today. A couple of news developments. We understand that the mayor of Baltimore, he's been stricken with COVID. Mayor's been doing a lot of gatherings, a lot of events, and unfortunately, so our prayers go out to him, the mayor of Baltimore. We have with us State Senator Antonio Hayes. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Fantastic, Donnie. How are you?
It's good to have you here with us. What have you been up to?
Busy working on behalf of the great constituents here in the 40th district. I'm really excited about the news that we broke just last Thursday. I joined with Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford, the mayor, and others, and the president of Coppin State University to announce the West North Avenue Development Authority. West North Avenue Development Authority, the target area that we're looking at, Donnie, is areas that you're very familiar with, from the 600 block of West North Avenue to the 3400 block of West North Avenue, stated otherwise from I-83 all the way over to Hilton. And so as you already know, there's plenty of organizations that's doing great work in this area already, whether you look at Greater Mondawmin community or Compton Heights or Druid Heights. All of them are doing extraordinary work in their own communities. But if you look along North Avenue, they're doing it only in their portion, right? And so they're isolated from the other activity that's happening along the North Avenue corridor. The West North Avenue Authority is an attempt to bring all of those organizations together for overall vision and attract business and other amenities for the community to West North Avenue.
So it's called West North Avenue
Development Authority. Yes, sir.
So is that official?
Yes. So we passed it. The bill was passed in this past General Assembly this past January, and it actually goes into effect October 1. So it was this past Friday. And, the president of Coppin State University will chair it. I think we as a country have learned the lessons of what takes place in development, and looking at places like Detroit, Harlem, Brooklyn, some parts of Philadelphia, having an HBCU engaged in a community, especially a predominantly African-American community that have seen a lot of disinvestment. We're hoping that we can be a benchmark for development going forward. And because one of the main concerns that people in our communities have is, okay, who are they building this for? Will we have an opportunity to see the positive effects? We've endured the challenges of communities for a long time that have been disinvested. Now that you guys are making investments, will we have an opportunity to be a part of that dream? And we hope, and working with institutions like Coppin State University, which is a trusted voice in the community, and a historically Black college and university, we will be an example to other places, not just throughout Baltimore, but throughout the state of Maryland, of what development look like with a people conscience.
Now, you went a little fast for me. I'm a little older than you. Number one, what is the president of Coppin's name?
Dr. Anthony Jenkins.
Okay. Welcome, Dr. Anthony Jenkins, to the city of Baltimore. He's been here how long now?
1 year.
A year. And you said Coppin is a trusted voice in the community.
Absolutely. So Coppin educates roughly close to about 3,000 students each year. 70% of those students are Pell Grant eligible. A vast majority of those students are Baltimore City residents. Coppin has the lowest tuition in the entire state of Maryland, and they educate the greatest amount of those who are living in poverty, and especially those in Baltimore City. The closest school that comes to them is University of Maryland UMES at 50% of Pell Grant eligible. But many Baltimore residents and young people choose Coppin as an institution, and families choose Coppin to educate their young people here in the city of Baltimore.
Now, I'm a Coppin alumni. I was actually a McNair Scholar there at Coppin. And so when you characterize Coppin as a trusted voice in community, a lot of thoughts go through my mind. Freddie Gray, the president back then was Maria Thompson. And so that was 6 years ago. And this president, Dr. Jenkins, has been there a year. Honestly, Senator, we never really heard from Coppin since Freddie Gray. Actually, in our community, it was University of Maryland who came through Sandtown and engaged the community. And so when you say trusted voice in the community, what I've been hearing is, where's Coppin been? I know recently, within the past year, I know that Mayor Schmoke at the University of Baltimore wanted to merge the three schools, and actually Doc Cheatham and I went out on the front lines because at the time Coppin did not have a president, and it didn't seem very fair to be proposing such a model when Coppin was, wasn't fully dressed to come out in public.
Yep. No, absolutely. And we all know that Coppin has had a lot of transition just in the 7 years that I've served in the state legislature. Just in the 7 years, they've had 3 different presidents, right? And so there's been a lot of transition. I'm excited about this new president. So far, he has proven to be a worthy partner of the community. And engage in those communities, especially those around them, like Greater Mondawmin, which is right there at his doorstep, and others. Just most recently, he for the first time. So one of the things that was a result of Freddie Gray was a piece of legislation called the Anchor Institution Fund, whereby only colleges and universities could apply for a pot of money that was being offered by Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. And so only hospitals and institutions of higher education, which Coppin meets that criteria. So this has been around since 2016. In all of the years that this has exists. Now, granted, this is the first year the governor has funded fully. In previous years, it's only been funded up to $5 million. This year, it was funded up to $10 million, so it was funded fully. But in all the years that this has existed, so institutions of higher education will have money that they could contribute back into the community. This is the first year that Coppin has ever applied to it. And so in doing so, in the application, you have to have a private partner. So it can't be Coppin that's developing something. In order to qualify for this money, it has to be Coppin has partnered with an organization that's in the community, and they are working towards a goal. And this is the first year since 2016 since this money has been around that Coppin has applied for the money. And so I see, I've seen firsthand the involvement and dedication that this president has had, and I hope that it continues throughout. And by him even stepping up to be the chair of the West North Avenue Development Authority, which is a 5-year initiative, gives him even greater chance to be involved and engaged.
Who's the private partner?
So one of the there's two different applications that they actually applied for. One is the one private partner is Keys Development. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Muhammad Keys. They have a they mostly work in clinical services around mental health, and they are taking over the former Lillian Lily Mae Jackson Elementary School, which is located at 1511 Ashburton Street, right off of North Avenue. It's a vacant school that's probably been vacant for the better of the last decade. And so they're looking to demolish that school and provide a new community resource there in the community. The other project that they've partnered with, you familiar with the old Walbrook Lumber Yard? Walbrook Lumberyard, Coppin Heights CDC, NHS, as well as there's a third partner, Osprey, have developed the old lumberyard at Walbrook right next to Coppin's campus. They've developed 60 affordable housing units, apartment units there. They've been able to attract a BB&T, or now Truist Bank. They're on the first floor. The remainder of the first floor is all space that will be used as a food court, similar to what they have over at our house. The difference between our house and the one that will be at Coppin, that will hopefully, with the funding that Coppin has applied for, this one will open next spring. The difference between our house and this one is 100% local vendors. 100% local vendors. So out of the 7 vendors that will be in there, all of them are from Baltimore. The second thing about that's different about this food court over in the old Walbrook Mill is that 6 of the 7 are African American females. And so these are people who, like Agape House, that has catering and who's provided catering for a while. They're going to have actually a food stand in this food court that make food available. There's a young lady who has a food truck. I'm sorry, I don't recall all the names of all of the vendors, but, and hearing a testimony from, someone went to Emerson High. One young lady explained about her years of attending Emerson High School here in Baltimore City. Another one was a graduate of Coppin State University. But I think it's awesome to have 7 individuals, small businesses, having an opportunity to share this space under one roof to provide cooked fresh foods to the community of West Baltimore.
So forgive me for playing devil's advocate.
No problem. That's what we're here for, Donnie, to bring the information to the people.
When I think of 2002 with a Republican Governor Ehrlich, he was able to give Coppin money that no Democrat had ever given Coppin before. And that always will stick out in my mind because Pete Rawlins lived not far from Coppin, as did others. They rode past Coppin every day. And it took a Republican governor to invest in our HBCU. In 2014, Hogan comes in, and I guess it was 3 years or so ago that they put money or helped with that expansion. I guess it was a January grand opening right there at Walbrook Lumber Mill. Remember the big tent and everybody showed up. This was 2018, and where Hogan wasn't as popular the first time, this time everybody affiliated with West North Avenue showed up, and I was pretty pleased. My question to you is, if we should get a Democratic governor, how will this momentum continue? And I'm assuming, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that the Republicans tend to understand business a little better, or do you think a Democratic governor can keep this momentum going?
So first of all, 2002 was a long time. I think I was just graduating from college at that time, but I do remember the investments that former Governor Ehrlich made. As you know, Donnie, I've been in office since 2015. Since 2015, I've been a Democrat the entire time. I will remain a Democrat, and as long as the good people of the 40th District see willingly, I'll continue to serve. Right, and so part of it is not waiting on a governor or someone else outside the district to advocate on behalf of your own community. And so I'm not waiting for a Democrat, Republican governor, or whoever. And so that's why we established this West North Avenue Development Authority. This has a 5-year span, right? And so no matter who the governor is, whether they're Democrat or Republican, this will land on their lap, and they will have a fierce advocate in yours truly, Senator Antonio Hayes, that is fighting to make sure that we see this thing through. I will tell you, yes, the other part of that, although, I have not had a chance, at least since I've been in office, to serve under a Democratic governor. I've only served under a Republican governor thus far. And oftentimes, in the spirit of debate, we're challenged. The very money that I talked to you about the Seed Anchor Institution Fund. Yes, it was passed in 2016, but it was vetoed by this governor. And it wasn't until we overrode it and said this is a need that Baltimore City and other communities had.
Why did he veto it?
We were able to successfully get it. I believe at the time he believed that it was not in the best interest. He had already had CORE, which you're familiar with. The press conference that you was talking about was the CORE dollars. So the CORE dollars go towards demolishing buildings and stuff like that. The Anchor Institution legislation was something that was proposed then by Speaker Bush. It was actually a $50 million, who's a Democrat. Speaker Bush, right after Freddie Gray came to Baltimore, he visited various organizations and he came up with a package. The package included the Anchor Institution Fund. It included extended library hours. It included several other things, and it totaled $50 million each year over the next 5 years. And almost every single one of those, and I can't remember all of those pieces of legislation, but if we go back and look at the legislative history, all of them passed successfully without one Republican vote, because they didn't believe that we as a state should be helping Baltimore in its time of need. And so
who felt that way?
So you name them, whatever Republicans of the legislature that voted against it, not a single one of them voted for this legislation. And then the governor went ahead and vetoed each piece of legislation. And it wasn't because
had they been here to Baltimore?
Some of them had visited, but they still didn't feel like, the state doesn't have an infinite amount of money. And so when it comes to them making a decision on whether or not Baltimore should get it or their constituents in Carroll County, they're going to side with Carroll County. And luckily we had built a strong enough coalition through the speaker to convince our other Democratic colleagues that Baltimore was worth making an investment in, because a strong Baltimore is a strong Maryland. Not everybody believe that. Some people believe that Baltimore is just a drain on the resources from the rest of the state, and they're not willing to invest. We have had some major successes with the current governor that we've had. And then sometimes he's been a partner. And sometimes if you look at the red line, $90 million for transit, getting people from Baltimore back and forth to work, he has not been a friend. And so I think either way, the scales of balance, and depending on whatever the issue is, we've sometimes had a friend and sometimes not so much had a friend or a partner in the state house.
But isn't that the same with Democratic governors? I mean, wasn't it Martin O'Malley who could have made that red line shovel ready before he left office and ran for president?
Oh, absolutely. It's also Martin O'Malley and both Larry Hogan that could have made sure State Center, which is in the heart of my district, outside of many communities in downtown, be developed. Both of them failed to do so. The point that I'm making, and you made the claim earlier of being the devil's advocate, I just want to put all of the facts on the table and understanding that Democrat or Republican, we have to make sure that we hold all of our leaders accountable to taking care of the priorities that we care about. And that's for me. My biggest priority is the 40th district in West Baltimore.
Well, can't the Republicans be helpful sometimes?
Sometimes, but more oftentimes than not, we've had to fight.
One could argue that we wouldn't have a black Speaker of the House if it weren't for the Republican caucus.
One could, but they would be false in doing so.
If Derek Davis would have took the Republican caucus, he would be Speaker of the House and not Adrian Jones. He wouldn't have a lot of friends with the Democrats, but he would be Speaker of the House.
Good point. But the Speaker of the House is Adrian Jones, and that wasn't because of the Republican Party.
Speaking of which, one of the mantle pieces of her administration is a Black agenda.
Oh, yes.
As you well know, in 9 months, we have a race for governor. And, I got to bring up this point by Catalina Bird. She made it on our other website, Be More News. She said that it's interesting how these endorsements have come out for gubernatorial candidates without the foreknowledge of who the running mate is. Westmore aside, have you ever seen that before, where gubernatorial candidates are getting endorsements without knowing who the running mate is?
Absolutely. I've toiled in the Democratic Party for many years. In the
Years
early
before he became an elected official.
absolutely, in the early ages of 22 and 23, I worked for the Maryland Democratic Party. I was a young Dem through college, and so oftentimes you'll see people endorsed before there's a running mate. Sometimes people want to see more, or it depends on folks' priorities. Sometimes people want to see they want to know if the person, they want to see the polls and see if a person have a better chance of winning. So it really depends on what folks are looking for and their commitment to candidates.
Why do you like a Westmore? Why did you endorse him?
I like Wes because prior to being and yes, I totally support Westmore, and I've endorsed him with several of my colleagues here in West Baltimore. Wes, prior to being a candidate for governor, has made significant investments as it relates to anti-poverty. Oftentimes, one of the problems, and Donnie, when we're off air, you and I talk about this frequently about economics. I truly believe the way we address crime, violence in our community, we deal with the root causes of poverty and make sure that people have an opportunity to economically empower themselves. And oftentimes, I find Democrats often afraid to talk about dollars. And my mom told me at a very early age, Sonia Pinky Hayes said, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Wes Moore is one of the only individuals in this campaign, especially on the Democratic side, that is talking economics. His message of work, wages, and wealth resonates with many Marylanders, myself included, in this great state. And I'm glad to finally see a gubernatorial candidate talking about giving people an opportunity to have a job, to work, and not just have a job. As you know, I had an opportunity to raise my little brother. And I told him when he was in high school, look, don't just get a job just for the sake of getting a job. Get something that's going to be able to help you raise a family. And oftentimes we have people in our community that work, but they're not making the wages to be able to sustain a family. And Wes Moore is talking about not only getting people a job, getting people work, but a quality job that's going to help them raise a family with decent wages. And for the first time in my knowledge, a gubernatorial candidate is talking about wealth. And so, the forefront of my agenda has really been around building wealth. And for me, specifically in the Black community, right? And so in building wealth in the Black community, whether it be home ownership or supporting small businesses. And he's a Democratic candidate who I've grown to know and hear from on many occasions talk about those things. The other thing that was really shocking to me, where I'm from, Donnie, Edna Whitelock, Francis Street, Clifton Avenue, Edding Street. When I met with Wes some time ago when he was talking about running for governor, Wes told me about this anti-poverty campaign that he had, and he was pouring money into West Baltimore. And out of all the neighborhoods he named Penn North. And I said, Wes, you could have named anywhere possible, but if you name it Penn North, I got to G-check you here because that's where I'm from, right? And so I went back to the neighborhood and verified what he had been telling me. And actually, I found one little cousin of mine that was actually benefiting from the program. I knew that she had went back to school. I knew that she was getting more engaged as a single mom in her son's life, and that she was pursuing different, new challenges in her education, in her job, in her career. I did not know that it was as a result of the work that Wes Moore had did to target funding and resources into the Penn North community. And so I think, the proof of the pudding is, what would you do, or what will you do prior to even being elected? And to me, he has proven over and over that he's willing to put words to action and make that happen. And so I wholeheartedly support him and hope that he's and I'm willing to do all that I can on my behalf to make sure that he's elected to be the next governor for the state of Maryland.
So the comptroller, who some say has an advantage, never appealed to you. You have a working relationship with him more so than candidate Moore.
I do have a working relationship with the comptroller. It has not been very impressive, right? And I will tell you, in my district alone, in the 40th district, if you look at the amount of votes that Peter Franchot received with no one running against no one, and the amount of votes that I received with an opponent, I received more votes in the 40th district than Peter Franchot ran unopposed. And so, and it's not because Antonio Hayes is some great guy. It's because I believe in representing the constituents of my district. And I listen to the constituents of my district and try as much as I can to be responsible to them. And hopefully, the work that I've done over these last couple of years will continue to earn me the amount of support that I've enjoyed over the last couple of years.
So this is going to be a grueling campaign in terms of money. And one thing that comes to my mind is when former Mayor Bernard Jack Young made his run for mayor against Brandon and Sheila and the other people in the race. And he hired a PR firm out of Washington, D.C., where he spent $500,000 to help his campaign and ended up in 7th place. A concern of mine is, particularly from the business of news, from the news business, is whether or not Democrats understand grassroots marketing, hiring local, those things. Or will they be like Jack Young and go and get a firm out of D.C.? I mean, honestly, as a Marylander, as a Baltimorean born and raised, when I see a candidate, Anthony Brown, classic example, he brought in people from the National Democratic Party into Maryland, into Baltimore to help him with his campaign. And quite frankly, these non-blacks tended to ostracize themselves from us locals. Do you think West will avoid those trappings?
No, absolutely. And, you know, and you named Bernard Young, which, you know, obviously.
He came in 7th place after $500,000. I mean, damn.
One of the things that I love about the Democratic Party is we're a big tent, right? And we attract candidates from all different experiences. But one of the things that, you know, I've grown to love about the Democratic Party is that we oftentimes put people first, at least those Democrats that are true to the core principles of our party. And so, you know, you have to work hard and make sure, and you know how I run a campaign. I'm always on the ground. I'm meeting people where they are, knocking door to door. I believe that Wes will do the same thing. There has not been anywhere that I've invited him to, and I see him out there. He has the energy. He's everywhere. And I would challenge you to look at each of the candidates. Not a single person in this race can articulate the strategies to build Black wealth in our communities as much as Wes Moore. Not a single one of these candidates. And I've talked to every single one of them, Donnie, and they all had the hyperbole about subcontracting and MBE, WBE. That has not gotten us very far.
He's got the intellectual down pat, a Rhodes Scholar, an Afghanistan war veteran, a White House fellow. We get all of that. The question is, if he walked down Greenmount Avenue, would people recognize him?
I don't know if any of the other candidates walk down Greenmount Avenue, whatever. I would tell you, so I got 67% of the vote in West Baltimore. And I could walk down any street in West Baltimore and give and take. There might be one or two people that recognize me, but overwhelmingly, that's not a measure of, you know, the work that you've done. So I appreciate your
come on, Senator. Come on, Senator.
Donnie, I'm
Come
in West
on.
Baltimore all the time. People have no idea who I am, right? And so
That's what you think.
here's what I know.
They know you at North and McCullough, bud.
They know me at North and McCullough. I'm sure they do. That's my hood. That's where I grew up at.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If this is your city, let me flip it like this. When C. Anthony News was running for U.S. Senate, he's a born Baltimorean, raised in Prince George's County. And I'm not at all saying West is like this. But nobody in Baltimore knew Senator Muse.
Right.
And nobody still knows him. But he's from Baltimore, McLean Park Heights, if I'm not mistaken. You got to carry home. Rashawn Baker, the last time around, and this is in the Glover Report on BlackUSA.News.com. Rashawn Baker got one council member from Prince George's County. This time around, he has 9. So West is not unique in that he has to build facial recognition. Rashawn Baker didn't even carry his own county. He's been on television a lot over the past 8-12 years.
Yeah. But I assure you, at the end of this race and at the rate of this campaign, and I could definitely speak for my contributions to it, by the end of this race, it is not a street in Baltimore that West will need to walk up and down and people not recognize who he is. And so that's part of, that's what campaigns do. And so we're looking forward to this journey of making sure that he become the next governor for the great state of Maryland. There was I don't know if you've seen it, and I can't keep up with it, but there was a couple of people asking various questions, and I don't know if we're going to get to them or whatever, but I can't. Well, I called myself. They pop up and then they go away, and so I couldn't keep ahead of them.
Okay, well, there you go. Tamara Brown, she hosts Sister Biz on Wednesdays. She says, who else will be part of the Development Authority? Will community members be included in decisions?
Yes, so there will be community members included. We're modeling the Development Authority off of like Central Baltimore Partnership, which at the end of the day boasts probably 200 to 300 different partners. Right now, we started with the core group of umbrella organizations along North Avenue, and I think it's about 12 of them. We have Druid Heights, Coppin Heights, Penn North, Reservoir Hill have 3 different community associations.
Slow down, Senator. In a short period of time, you will also have Sandtown Community Association. Of course, we have North Avenue from Cary Street down to Monroe and Fulton.
Absolutely. Fulton. Right. And so the goal is to work with the community organizations that's there and also expand. There are other partners in the community. One of the things that the community has pointed out to me is we're very resident focused, and we talk about, strengthening and supporting the businesses along there. And we don't have a lot of business organizations. Like right now, Pennsylvania Avenue Main Street is not among them, or at the other part of North Avenue up near the junction, there's a group called the North Avenue Task Force. The goal is to grow the involvement of all of the communities, whether it be business or residential. We wanted to first make sure that the people who had the greatest at stake and the greatest investment, and that being the residents, was at the table. But our end goal is to be inclusive of all of the different members that make up community.
Well, to be honest, that's a challenge because these groups have never been afforded truly the opportunity to work together. Why? Because they've been all going after the same pot of money. So it's been a competition. So you're trying to, reverse the model 180 degrees to where you and I were fighting to get this check. Either you get it or I get it. Now it's about, you got to dump some money so you and I don't have to compete against each other. We can join arms together.
Absolutely.
I saw that happen when O'Malley was mayor. He took a lot of the community development block grant money from Sandtown and shifted it over east.
Right. And that's because, Donnie, there's been no intentional effort to bring all these different communities together, putting it all on the table, what their priorities are, and had them collectively coming up with an overall vision and prioritize them. And so that's what we hope to do. When we work together, we could get a bigger bang out of our buck. But like you said, if we got $5 and Drew Heights is fighting for $1 and Matthew A. Hinton fighting for $1 and this one fighting for $1, as opposed to all of us collectively saying, we got $5, this is how we're going to make this $5.
Oh my God, please give Dr. Cheatham one of those dollars. God, we'll never hear the end of it. Going back to your point about Hogan and Project Core, I remember when they had a Project Core meeting. This was the first term. It was up at Coppin. That was the first time I had seen competing community organizations all at the same table.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a huge amount of money. Like, look, anyone who says that, there's a lot of criticism behind Core, but anyone that says that it wasn't a much needed resource at the right time, I would be willing to argue that any day of the week. For far too long, here's the thing, Donnie. So the city of Baltimore, their entire capital budget is $98 million a year. The entire capital budget. And the entire budget, for the most part, 80 to 85% of that is all debt. They put out a $80 million bond to fund their capital budget, right? And the amount of money that we as a state, working with the governor and the legislature, have been able to set aside for Core, demolishing these long-term vacant houses in our communities, has helped clear a lot of land to make way for additional development to take place. So it was definitely a much needed resource that I think put us in a better position than we was years ago to do development. What I'm most interested in now is Core. A lot of it focused on tearing down, and we've torn down complete blocks of nothing but dilapidated vacant houses. What I'm interested in now, especially given the most recent census numbers, where we see that in Baltimore, the white population has stabilized, that the Latino,
except the ones in Sandtown buying dope in my alley.
I got you. So the white population has stabilized. The Latino and the Asian population is growing, but the African American population in Baltimore City is the only one that's declining. And the population that's declining is those individuals that could afford to, right? And so when we talk about institutions like Coppin State University, Morgan State University, University of Maryland, Baltimore, and all these different institutions, Loyola University, we have 100,000 college students that come to Baltimore every year. We have a population of 585,000, but 100,000 of those students, they do not claim residency in Baltimore. They come to Baltimore to get an education, and then they go elsewhere after graduating from the institutions that I named, or Hopkins.
Many of them.
Right. Many of them leave, right? And so what I hope to do, and one of the things that I did this past legislative session, was I introduced a bill called the Live Near Your School program. Whereas if you're a student currently trying to get your degree here in Baltimore or in the state of Maryland, it's a statewide bill, but my interest is always first in Baltimore, and to be more specific, in West Baltimore. That's my priority, right? So the Live Near Your School program, if you are a current student or you've graduated from an institution of higher education within 5 years, the state of Maryland will help pay towards your closing costs. What does that do? That created an opportunity. We have plenty of students that are going to University of Maryland Law School, University of Baltimore Law School, the pharmacy school. It's not that they can't afford to pay on a monthly basis for where they live, because if you look at most of the places where they live, whether it be Mount Vernon or Fed Hill, whatever, a lot of those places, they're paying more in rent than they would possibly pay in mortgage. The problem they have is having enough money accumulated to put down the down payment costs as far as the closing costs on the house. And so if we as a state, similar to the Live Near Your Work program, where employers pay a certain amount and the state match it, if we could do the same for our students seeking higher education, then we start to build we start to retain the African American middle and upwardly mobile class that we're losing rapidly here in Baltimore. And so, that those are some of the things that I've been working on, and hopefully we could turn the tide. And so, as opposed switching from the successes that we had with CORE, where we were demolishing the blight, now creating opportunities where we're now able to build communities that are culturally attractive, especially to those when you talk about culture in the African American community, to live in our neighborhoods.
How do we make Baltimore attractive for upwardly mobile Black people? It's like, how do you get a sister to move to Sandtown?
Yep. And so Black folks that are upwardly mobile, they want the same thing as everybody else wants. It's not rocket science. They want a safe neighborhood. They want a clean neighborhood. They want a great place to educate their kids. And when we work to provide these opportunities, also it's important that they have the amenities that culturally are welcoming in our communities. If you go to places,
you mentioned that, because they keep closing schools in our community, and these are Black people on the Baltimore City School Board. I've heard this thing about 21st century schools, but apparently I don't live around them. In Sandtown, we had 3. Even with Freddie Gray, we have 2. Now we're down to 1, and it just makes me wonder, how are these Black people on the school board serving us here in West Baltimore? Because we see the opposite. Your whole neighborhood, other than that one school, I mean, we have a recreation center desert, an educational desert on top of a food desert.
Right. And that's why it's important that we develop plans to attract these families back to Baltimore. If you look at the birth rates here in Baltimore over the last 6 years, families are having less babies than they were. The birth rate here in Baltimore has declined. And so that's going to affect everything for the next 14 years, whether from pre-K all the way up to the 12th grade. The more the birth rates decrease, the less kids that we're going to see. You know, just as well as I do, Baltimore used to have a population of 1.6 million people, 1.6 million. Can you remember that question?
Was it that many?
Before it disappeared, and then I forget it, and I'll go back to it. But yeah, we used to have a population of 1.6 million, right?
Was it 1.6?
1.6 million. Now we have a population of 585,000, right? We still have the same amount of schools for 1.6 million, right? And so part of the 21st century plan was recognizing the decline.
I don't care about how many people there. I want a school in my neighborhood, Senator.
I understand that.
And the school board want to send kids from one neighborhood to another. And if you know anything about Lamel, you know that's where the fight broke out, where kids were transversing different communities. So these people on the school board clearly have no clue about what it's like to live on Poplar Grove and have to go through North Avenue all the way to get up to Lamel. Help me out. Am I missing something?
Donnie, I hear you, but the numbers just don't support that argument. Like, I wanted Westside Elementary. I thought Westside Elementary was the best school ever. Why? Because I went to elementary school there. Why? Because my mama went to school there. Everybody in my family went to school there, and I didn't want to see it close. I still think even today, although the decision was made against what I wanted to happen, they decided to renovate John Eager Howard over in the Reservoir Hill as opposed to Penn North. I think the Penn North community could have been better served with a new school. At the end of the day, we don't have the population of students to support those schools. Westside Elementary, even up to the last days of school, it was a three-floor building. The entire third floor was completely vacant. The second floor was only half occupied. But we, as taxpayers, right, we don't want to pay more taxes. We want to decrease our taxes, but we're paying for schools that are empty. And so the 21st century program is about having opportunities to expand, to right size our schools. And hopefully, if we're able to.
No, Senator, it's not working. I'm telling you, the whole West Baltimore, from Pennsylvania Avenue over there to Ashburton, It's an educational desert, a recreational center desert.
I wouldn't say that, Don. I don't think so. The population isn't there. If you look at we got
We
Sway.
don't care about how many people we are here. We live here.
I understand that we're here, but
so we don't matter. So we don't matter.
That's not what I'm saying either.
That's what you're saying. It's not enough of us here. We need to move over there to Reservoir Hill, where a white guy started a community association, told black people they couldn't be the president. So and then you give us bike lanes. Bike lanes are next, right?
So at Sway, which is Sandtown Winchester Achievement Academy, that's a school that's directly there in Sandtown.
Oh, you mean George Kelson, where they took the historic neighborhood icon's name off of the building and renamed it Sandtown Winchester. Oh yeah, how could I forget?
So that school is currently at 75% capacity, right? 25%, it can take 25% more students there. Then if you go around a corner to New Song on the opposite hand, which attract kids from all over the place, with 30% of the kids being from Sandtown, is full to capacity, right? They're about to expand over to the old Gilmore Elementary School.
So why would they close Gilmore? That's exactly my point. They closed Gilmore. You know what I mean?
Donnie, would you be willing to pay taxes to keep a school open that is empty?
But they're about to reopen it.
That's because another school that has a bigger catchment area, there's not enough students in Sandtown Winchester to support more than one school. The school that they had there isn't
according to whom?
According to the numbers. You look at the enrollment. You look at where people live at and how many families that have school-age kids.
Well, if they put some police here, maybe people will stop shooting each other. Well, they took off these dirty cops who getting the dope money to turn their heat, because down here, in addition to an educational desert, recreational desert, we have dope sales in front of police. Who wants to move to a neighborhood like this?
Donnie, it goes back to what we originally started talking about. We need to grow the population in our city. The amount of schools that we have,
don't move to a neighborhood where there's only a few people, because you're likely not to have a school nearby. I'm just saying.
No, it's a neighborhood where you have few people is doing the work to make sure that we attract people to those neighborhoods, right? And so having incentives where young people that are being educated here temporarily could buy a house, working with the city to make sure that those houses are renovated, getting people to move in. If we're looking for a magic wand, if we're looking for years and decades of redlining and discriminatory practices of banks not lending to communities to build up our neighborhoods, if we're looking for that to be overdone in 1 year, we're fooling ourselves.
We've also had some Democratic mayors smoke. Let me get my point in. Kurt Schmoke was the last mayor to invest in West Baltimore. So I'm all for your loyalty to the Democratic Party, but we haven't seen him in 20 years.
That's not true. I'm in Sandtown all the time, and I am the Democrat.
You are here. I'm telling you, we have not had mayoral attention from City Hall in Sandtown since O'Malley came in office. And so I'm not as enthused by the Democrats as are you. I'm just not.
I hear you.
Because the Democrats are telling me there's not enough of my people in Sandtown for us to get the services that I would get in Hamden.
I don't think that's what I said. And to make it clearer, what I'm saying is there's not enough people to support the same number.
They getting shot up. They ODing on fentanyl. They ODing on fentanyl.
So that's the Democratic Party's fault. Like I think you're stuck in this box of Democrat versus Republican, and at the end of the day, it's about solutions. No, we're not.
You would never support a Republican governor.
Probably not, given the history of what they've done to communities that I represent. Exactly. Probably not. I find every day I find myself fighting against my Republican colleagues. I asked for there's probably about 100 to 200 police officers that could be returned to the streets immediately if we as a state took over juvenile bookings where we have police officers checking people in. If we have state police help us out here in Baltimore City and patrol I-83 and 295. What did my Republican colleagues say? Hell no, we're not helping Baltimore no more. That's a Baltimore problem. So what did? We came back next year with a fix to it. So we say, okay, you're not going to help us. You said no to us. Why don't we create some revenue, speed cameras on I-83, so we could raise enough money so we could help pay for those police officers and have a better interstate. For 2 hours, we debated with 13 members of the Republican Party and why Baltimore shouldn't have speed cameras to help return our police officers back in the neighborhoods. Why? Because they didn't want their county residents to get caught by the speed cameras. They could give a damn about the fact that we don't have police officers in our neighborhoods. And so
it's very interesting.
If we want to talk about the Democrat and Republican thing, I can name you case by case by case by case by case where the Republican Party has fought us tooth and nail.
Well, let me ask you this.
Every time. I remember when I proposed, I had the written testimony from Kelly Schultz that opposed the West North Avenue Development Authority. Out of every state agency, she opposed our West North Avenue Development Authority. So there's an example where the Republicans have tried to hold us back.
Can you tell me why all of the speed cameras are in the Black community?
They're not.
It seems like every 2 blocks there's one in the Black community, but as soon as you get over to the white community, they have none.
No, so the way they determine on where the speed cameras, because now I will tell you the biggest thing that they lied to us about is it's really about safety. It's really about revenue, right? The speed cameras that we have in Baltimore City generate about $26 million a year, right?
What do I do? It's not going to schools in my neighborhood.
And so, you want me to finish? Or you want to talk over me? Work with me here, brother. So they put them in places where the speed is the highest. If you look at places like Gwynns Falls Parkway or other places, these places are like raceways. People are like Hilton Road. Like
only Black people speed.
People are racing up and down. Well, in a lot of these communities, so as you also know, do racial practices like redlining and other things, they use highways and really busy streets to separate our communities to make them less desirable. So it's mostly concentrated in Black communities, where on North Avenue up until recently, we had a 4-lane highway separating Sandtown, Winchester, and Penn North.
Oh, so you're a bike lane advocate.
What's that?
You're a bike lane advocate?
I'm an advocate for safety. We in the Black community, we pay more for health insurance due to accidents and
it's my fault that they're charging me
anyone else.
High rates for car insurance. It's my fault because I'm Black.
No, it's the institutions of systematic racism that are prevalent throughout here in Baltimore and throughout our country that have used things like highways, streets, and other things to separate and divide our communities, to make these very fast roadways, not for the benefit of the residents that live in Sandtown and Penn North. North Avenue didn't have 4 lanes because they wanted people from Penn North to get from one part of North Avenue to the other. The reason why they had 4 lanes on North Avenue was to make sure that county residents that once lived in Baltimore through white flight that moved out to the counties get home quicker. It wasn't
so
because
I gotta move slower.
It wasn't trying to make sure that people in our neighborhood get home quick. What would I'm sorry, we were both talking at the same time, and when we do that,
big brother, to go from East Baltimore to West Baltimore used to take about 7 minutes. You had North Avenue, or you could go across Druid Park Drive. Mm-hmm. Now it's a bottleneck at North and Park.
Tell me this, Donnie.
Because of a bike lane, and I don't see one damn bike.
So they're bus lanes. They're dedicated bus lanes.
Oh,
Which percentage of people in Sandtown, Winchester own a car?
I don't know, but I know these damn bike lanes are new. I didn't take the poll. I didn't take the census.
Donnie, less than 30% of people in Sandtown, Winchester own a car. The average person to get to work in Sandtown, Winchester is an hour and a half. The main source of transportation that they use is mass transit, the bus. Why shouldn't we have dedicated lanes for the majority of the residents to get to work sooner in Sandtown, Winchester? If 70% of the people catch,
if they cared about Sandtown, Winchester, they would clean up. If they cared about Sandtown, Winchester,
answer me that question. Tell me that question.
If they cared about Sandtown, Winchester, they would make Upton subway station look habitable, as opposed to looking like a damn dungeon.
Donnie, if
have
70%
you been to Upton subway station since you know transportation? It looks like a morgue. It don't look like Hopkins. They don't care.
It's scheduled for May.
I'm voting for Michael Jackson. They don't really care about us.
You're deflecting. If 70% of the people depend on mass transit to get to work and it take them more than an hour and a half.
That's an assumption.
Why? No, it's
an assumption.
It's documented fact. Look on North
If they know so much about us, then why is Upton Station looking like the coroner's office?
Well, I think Upton isn't in my district. I know Penn North is scheduled for an overhaul, and it's just had maintenance done. And
it don't look like Hopkins where the white people at. It's so clean. It's well lit. It looks like heaven.
But do you agree that if 70% of the people catch the bus, we should be accommodating those people?
You're assuming that 70% of the people catch the bus, and I'm telling you they don't.
That's what is documented. But if let's say it was true. Let's say we prove that it was true that 70%
people catch hacks. Big brother, I know you used to live, on Francis Street.
But
we catch hacks in Uber. When we get in the Uber, we try to get down North Avenue. We ain't trying to look over in the bus lane. It's like, why don't you go over there in the bus lane?
Right.
Why do these white people have so much power over everyday people? Grandma ain't riding no bike.
On North, I don't know about the bike lanes, but on the North Avenue, those are dedicated bus lanes.
The bus comes once every hour.
No way, the bus don't come once every hour. When the last time you caught the bus?
When's the last time you caught the bus?
Last week, the gold line moves every 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes. Why don't you come ride the bus with me, Donnie?
I don't know about that. But look, I do want to ask you about Prince George's County. How is your candidate? This is the final question. You made it through. I got to put these glasses on. You made it through a whole 58 minutes, and we didn't cuss. Okay, so how? And I didn't
cuss? You trying to make me cuss? You wanted me to cuss? Is that what it was?
I just poked you a little bit. How do you see Westmore penetrating Prince George's County? Because quite frankly, the reports I'm getting, his name is not resonating in Prince George's County.
No, and no, good point. And it's early in the campaign. Wes is committed to running a 24-state campaign, right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you know what's that? Yeah, 24 jurisdictions throughout Maryland. Excuse me. I'm not sure if you know the better half of the Moore family. Her name is Dawn.
I met Dawn. I know Dawn from when she worked for Anthony Brown.
Right. Who's a native of Prince George's County, who helped Anthony Brown with his races out there. Who knows?
He lost for governor. I wouldn't bring that up.
What's that?
He lost for governor. I wouldn't bring that up.
He lost for governor, but the better part of that family knows Prince George's County well, and it's just about reintroducing.
I know Baltimore City doesn't mean their name resonates across the county. That's a big county. It's bigger than Baltimore. Not knocking Don, but that's like saying if you don't know Donnie Glover, you can't win Baltimore.
But knowing Donnie Glover will be very helpful to knowing Baltimore, right?
You're damn right.
Donnie has a pretty big reach. I think that Don does well, but I know this
candidate. George's too.
I got you. So, but with Wes Moore, he's running the 24 state campaign. He's going to be in Prince George's, just as he's in Baltimore and on the Eastern Shore and Western Maryland. What is going to resonate with people in Prince George's is his campaign centered around work, wealth, and wages, because that message resonates whether you're in Prince George's, whether you're in Baltimore City, whether you're in Carroll County. I believe that in order, the opportunities of having a place in the economic spectrum of our great state provides greater opportunities for people to be successful. It's what people who want in eastern Baltimore County that have lost faith in institutions like the Democratic Party, they constantly complain about. Like back in the day, my grandfather and others used to be able to get a decent wage over at Bethlehem still. Since those jobs have lost, people are angry that they cannot get a fair opportunity at good work with a decent wage to create more opportunities for wealth. And I believe no matter where you are in this state, that message resonates with the people. And at the end of the day, not only will Baltimore City deliver, but so will Prince George's and Montgomery County and Arundel County and Baltimore County and so on and so forth. And so I'm going to do my part to make sure that we get that message out there to ensure people to know that Wes Moore is definitely the right candidate to be the next governor for the state of Maryland.
Well, before you go, our big brother, Kermit Carter, lost his brother and Bunyan. So, our prayers to Mr. Carter's family.
Indeed.
But
Indeed.
I have to ask you what kind of influence has Mr. Carter, Kermit Carter, had on you? Now, he's our big brother. He's been in business. He's all about community. He goes to church. He mentors. Before you go, tell me something about Kermit Carter.
No, Kermit is, he's what we call in the hoods like an OG, right? He's seen me since I was a little boy, growing up, and in Penn North, and knew me before I realized the achievements that I have, and I'm grateful to his friendship, grateful to his love. Even in my darkest hours, Donnie, I could turn to Kermit, and he will always offer to me that listening ear or that advice and that encouragement to keep going. If you go outside his office to this day, the only memorial that I'm aware of outside of in my own home that shows reverence to the loss of my mom is right outside of Kermit's office. And so for that, I am forever eternally grateful for his love, his friendship, and his mentorship.
That's why you're always welcome here. but your buddies, you better let them know we got security. Thank you for all that you do, Senator. Come on, Farrell. And thank you for your support.
Indeed. Thank you, Donnie. Have a good one.
Always. Keep watching BlackUSA.News. We'll be back tonight at 7 o'clock with the Donnie Glover Show.